This Right to Life says physicians were given information via legacy media that distorts what care they may provide to pregnant women in legitimate medical crises. The results of this confusion is that women were very likely denied appropriate care. The abortion industry wanted to blame that on the law and gain unlimited loopholes for abortion. The Texas Supreme Court said no. Prosecution of abortionists in Texas would be a simple matter of showing intent. However, ethical doctors acting in good faith to legitimately protect mothers are in turn protected in law. This is Life News Radio. Persecution around the world has manifested itself through the centuries, but it is worse today than ever before. Aid to the Church in Need and its donors have been there to help since 1947, never abandoning the Church or her most vulnerable children. Will you stand up for your faith and accompany our brothers and sisters on their spiritual journey? Visit churchinneed.org. churchinneed.org. The World Health Organization concluded over the weekend without a treaty. Hundreds of lawmakers from dozens of countries cited WHO rules demanding such documents be presented 4 months before any assembly. Ideas put forth at the assembly included control over local policies and the power to censor speech in any pandemic, as well as calls for more eugenic abortions. And on Friday, Paulette Harlow was sentenced to 25 months in prison for peaceful civil disobedience at an abortion business. For pro-life headlines delivered to your email address daily, sign up at livenews.com. This has been Life News Radio.
Experience the thunderous excitement of Niagara Falls as we celebrate a major milestone. On August 24th at the Niagara Falls Convention Center, the Station of the Cross will be celebrating our 25-year anniversary. Become a part of history while being captivated by an all-star lineup of renowned speakers. Raymond Arroyo, Candace Owens, Bishop Joseph Strickland, Mother Miriam, Father Robert McTagg, Jim Havens, and Joe McLean. After soaking in their powerful messages at the general event, get to know them on a personal level at the VIP Gala Dinner. Take advantage of this unique opportunity to mingle with our guest speakers while enjoying hors d'oeuvres and cocktails and a wonderful sit-down dinner. Make it a vacation at one of the fabulous hotels within walking distance of Niagara Falls. But act fast. Tickets are limited. Register today at thestationofthecross.com.
The Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network presents Saints and Seasons. On June 5th, we celebrate the feast of St. Boniface, Bishop and Martyr. Boniface was born with the name Winfrid in the late 7th century in what is now Devonshire, England. As a Benedictine monk, he attempted to preach in Frisia, but was forced to return to England. A few years later, Pope St. Gregory II sent Boniface to evangelize the German tribes beyond the Rhine. After several years of hard work, he was made a bishop, and later appointed an archbishop by Pope St. Gregory III. On one occasion, Boniface encountered Norse pagans in Germany who were worshipping a huge oak tree. Boniface swiftly took up an axe and hewed down the tree, using the timber to build a chapel in honor of St. Peter. The act inspired many conversions, and some consider this story to be the origin of the traditional Christmas tree. The mission in Germany was difficult but successful, resulting in many conversions, reforms, and the First German Synod. With the cooperation of the Carolingians, Pope St. Zachary made Boniface Archbishop of Mainz and Primate of Germany. He eventually resigned this office in order to again evangelize in Frisia. After some early success, Boniface and several companions were murdered by Frisian pagans in the year of our Lord 754. Boniface is venerated as the Apostle of Germany, as well as a patron of brewers and tailors. Also honored on this day are St. Dorotheus of Tyre, St. Sancius of Cordoba, and many other martyrs, confessors, and holy virgins. For more about the saints and seasons of the Catholic Church, visit thestationofthecross.com/saints and seasons.
This is Joe McLean, and you're listening to the Station of the Cross, proclaiming the fullness of the truth with clarity and charity.
Heard around the world on your Android and Apple mobile devices.
Go into the world and tell every man that you meet, there is a man on the cross.
A Catholic take What you need to know right now. A bold synthesis of inspiration and information. Keeping you up to date on the news and issues from a courageous Catholic perspective.
A Catholic Take with Joe McLean starts now.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McLean, and it's great to be on with you. Praise be to God. Pope Francis. Has Pope Francis been waffling just a wee bit? It seems, though, because last week, you might remember, we had the whole conversation about why he used that derogatory term, faggotry, to sort of indicate to the Italian bishops to stop admitting homosexuals into their seminaries because they were pushing for it, by the way. Don't forget that part. They were pushing for it. He makes that comment, has to backtrack on that apology. There's worldwide pushback from homosexual priests and clergy all over the world, just not happy with Pope Francis over it. And this week, we learned that he actually encourages a homosexual man to continue with their vocation. And then, of course, we also learned that he's endorsed Jimmy Martin's book. It's weird. It's kind of bizarre. I'm going to be honest with you. It seems like a bit of a waffle there. We're going to have Dr. Anthony Stine on the program at 14 past the hour to talk about what is going on here. It seems to be a little bit of talking out of both sides of their mouth. Also on the program, we are going to talk with Chris Altieri. He is an editor over at Catholic World Report, a journalist, an author. We're going to talk to him about his articles over at Catholic World Report, one of which is on Pope Francis's apology. The other is about a mysterious thing going down in Argentina. A bishop there who replaced Cardinal Fernandez in the Diocese of La Plata, it wasn't even there a whole year, and he's been asked to resign. He's a pretty young guy. He's got a lot of life left in him. Is he just like another Strickland? Like, what's going on? Why, in fact, is there this mystery resignation there? What is going on? We're going to ask Chris Altieri all those questions and more on the show today. And we'll share everything with you in our show notes over at thestationofthecross.com/ACT. Make sure to sign up to the email list while you're there. By the way, my comments on Donald Trump have been included in a new article over at Crisis Magazine, Growing Anger at the Trump Convictions. You can find it at crisismagazine.com, but I'll link to that in the show notes for you as well. Let's pray. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thine intercession was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, I fly unto thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my mother. To thee do I come, before thee I stand, sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but in thy mercy hear and answer me. Amen. Saint Joseph, terror of demons, ora pro nobis. And now, your saint of the day.
Saint Boniface, pray for us. Boniface was born with the name Winfrid in the late 7th century in what is now Devonshire, England. As a Benedictine monk, he attempted to preach in Frisia, but was forced to return to England. A few years later, Pope St. Gregory II sent Boniface to evangelize the German tribes beyond the Rhine. After several years of hard work, he was made a bishop, and later appointed an archbishop by Pope St. Gregory III. On one occasion, Boniface encountered Norse pagans in Germany who were worshipping a huge oak tree. Boniface swiftly took up an axe and hewed down the tree, using the timber to build a chapel in honor of St. Peter. The act inspired many conversions, and some consider this story to be the origin of the traditional Christmas tree. The mission in Germany was difficult but successful, resulting in many conversions, reforms, and the First German Synod. With the cooperation of the Carolingian monarchs, Pope St. Zachary made Boniface Archbishop of Mainz and Primate of Germany. He eventually resigned this office in order to again evangelize in Frisia. After some early success, Boniface and several companions were murdered by Frisian pagans in the year of our Lord 754. Boniface is venerated as the Apostle of Germany, as well as a patron of brewers and tailors. For more about this day and others in the Church's calendar, visit thestationofthecross.com/saints and seasons. Saint Boniface, pray for us.
And now your headline news. The Hill reports Biden announces order limiting asylum at the southern border. The order will be in effect when the 7-day average of daily border crossings exceeds 2,500 between ports of entry, senior administration officials are saying, meaning it will go into effect immediately. Biden issued a proclamation announcing the change under the Immigration and Nationality Act. The core of the new policy is the ability to refuse entry to most foreign nationals who cross the border without prior authorization. The new policy will prevent border officials from admitting new asylum seekers while it is active. Migrants who are expelled under the order will receive a minimum 5-year bar on re-entry to the United States and potentially be criminally prosecuted. Breitbart reports Epic Times CFO charged in alleged money laundering scheme. The finance chief of the conservative global news network Epic Times has been arrested over his alleged involvement in a massive global scheme to launder at least $67 million in illicit funds. According to the indictment, Bill Guan, 61 years old, led the outlet's Make Money Online team, which is accused of using cryptocurrency to purchase tens of millions worth of crime proceeds. Guan was arrested Sunday morning and pleaded not guilty on Monday afternoon before a federal magistrate judge in Manhattan. If convicted, the resident of Secaucus, New Jersey, could spend more than 30 years in prison. Agenzia Fides reports over 1 million attend celebration for Feast of Ugandan Martyrs. In fact, about 4 million faithful participated on June 3rd in the Ugandan Martyrs Catholic Shrine Basilica. It marks 60 years since Pope Paul VI canonized a total of 22 Catholics and 23 Anglicans killed between 1885 and 1887 on the orders of King Mwanga II in the Kingdom of Buganda. It is celebrated on June 3rd in memory of the martyrdom of St. Charles Lwanga, one of the 22 Catholics killed. In his homily, Monsignor Raphael, the Archbishop-elect, warned the faithful not to allow themselves to be seduced by all forms of idolatry and practices that are not in keeping with the Christian faith, such as polygamy, witchcraft, and genital mutilation, recalling that Ugandan martyrs preferred to die so as not to renounce their faith. They also didn't want to go with the homosexual agenda there either. And those are your headline news. Hey, the gospel today comes to us from Mark chapter 12, verses 18 through 27. Some Sadducees who say there is no resurrection came to Jesus and put this question to him, saying, "Teacher, Moses wrote for us, if someone's brother dies, leaving a wife but no child, his brother must take the wife and raise up descendants for his brother. Now there were 7 brothers. The first married a woman and died, leaving no descendants. So the second brother married her and died, leaving no descendants. And the third likewise. And the 7 left no descendants. Least of all, the woman also died. And at the resurrection, when they arise, whose wife will she be? For all 7 had been married to her." Jesus said to them, "Are you not misled, because you do not know the Scriptures or the power of God? When they rise from the dead, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but they are like the angels in heaven. As for the dead being raised, have you not read in the book of Moses in the passage about the bush, how God told them, 'I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob'? He is not the God of the dead, but of the living. You are greatly misled." The gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Could you imagine looking Jesus in the eye as he says to you, "You are greatly misled"? Could you imagine the psychological, emotional, and spiritual impact of seeing the God-man, the second person of the Blessed Trinity, the Savior of mankind, the only way by which one can see the Father or obtain heaven, and he says to you, "You are greatly misled"? Like, that would be soul-crushing, I have to imagine. Could you imagine what it would be like at their judgment? Yikes. The Ignatius Catholic Study Bible says the Sadducees, priestly aristocrats who managed the affairs of the Jerusalem temple, their denial of a future resurrection was unacceptable to most Jews of the day. Here, they consider a future resurrection only hypothetically. They are really out to prove there is no such thing. The Sadducees draw attention to the Levirate law in Deuteronomy chapter 25. This law required a man to marry his brother's widow if the brother died childless. The man would thus produce children for his deceased brother and carry on his family name in Israel. The Sadducees considered this legislation inconsistent with a belief in bodily resurrection, since the widow's numerous marriages would only lead to confusion if all of her husbands were raised. At the general resurrection, the righteous will become like angels in glory and immortality. They will not, however, live as disembodied spirits. Marriage will no longer exist in this state, since its purposes are fulfilled during earthly life. So we don't become angels. We don't have angels in heaven. Prayerfully, we have saints that can intercede for us in heaven, but we don't become angels when we die. They are a separate creature altogether. It goes on, since the Sadducees restricted biblical authority to the Pentateuch, Jesus deliberately draws from the Pentateuch to demonstrate the resurrection. Exodus chapter 3, verse 6. The passage narrates how Yahweh revealed himself to Moses at the burning bush as the God of the deceased patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Their intimacy with God, even after death, proves the immortality of their souls. Wisdom 3:1. And so hints at the future resurrection of their bodies, as in Isaiah 26:19. So the Lord is no dummy. He knows your heart. He knows your thoughts. And you can't trick him. You're not going to pull a fast one on the Lord. He catches you every single time. So repent and believe in the gospel while you have an opportunity to do so. Hey, we'll be right back. Dr. Stine's coming up next. Don't go anywhere.
This is Jim Havens, host of The Simple Truth. Thank you for supporting our recent Spring On-Air appeal. We are so grateful to the many donors who have stepped up to help us make significant progress toward our Spring Appeal goal. If the Station of the Cross has been a blessing to you, please help us to close the gap by making a donation today. To support our mission, call 1-877-711-8500 during normal business hours. You can donate online at thestationofthecross.com, use the donation page of iCatholic Radio or the iCatholic Music app, or return the envelope from our recent mailing. It is very important that we hit our goals so we can continue to proclaim the truth and beauty of our Catholic faith. Thank you for being a listener and for your generous support. God bless you.
Hello, this is Steve Gleason with your 1-minute tool for Catholic evangelism. Here's the question for your non-Catholic friend. What is the life expectancy of any human organization to exist under one rule of law? Well, here's your 3 best friendship tools for Catholic evangelism. Number 1, the deceit of dominance. Kingdoms, empires, and societies all come and all go. Why? Moral decay, a blind eye, and defiance to the order of a civil society. Secondly, history. Kingdoms such as the Persians, the Greeks, the Ottomans, even the Roman Empire made it for around 1,000 years, but soon they all find themselves failing, imploding, and finally splitting. But there's one that has survived, the Catholic Church, and under one rule of law. And thirdly, my take, a promise. Jesus said the Holy Spirit would infuse the apostles with a divine glue that would hold his church together. It is a human impossibility that the Catholic Church would persist through time, terror, and trouble. Well, the Rolling Stones have lasted 60 years, the Atlanta Braves about 150, the teetering Southern Baptists about 180, but we're still here 2,000 years later, and the best is yet to come. Find me online at Smarty Pants Catholic Evangelism.
Be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McLean. Praise be to God. It is good to be on with you. Coming up at 30 past the hour, Chris Altieri. He's an editor over Catholic World Report. He's going to be on the show. We're going to be talking about a couple of articles that he published there. One is about the apology of Pope Francis and the gentleman's agreement that he was trying to make with the Italian bishops. But did they out him? I'm wondering. Interesting turn of events there. Also on that conversation is going to be what's going on in Argentina, why the mystery surrounding this young bishop. Again, a young bishop asked to retire, which he did. Why? He was replacing Fernandez down there, and there seems to be some unanswered questions. Chris Altieri joins us at 30 past the hour to have those conversations. But there are lots of stories in the news that are of great concern to us, and I'm sure they are to you as well. And I love to turn to Dr. Anthony Stine over at Return to Tradition to get a lot of the scoop on these stories. Last week, you might remember, We heard Pope Francis telling the Italian bishops to cut out the faggotry. This week, Pope Francis not only endorses Jimmy Martin's new book, he wrote the preface to it, but he is also telling young homosexual men to continue on in their pursuit to their vocation. Well, which is it? I'm just curious. It seems to be a bit of a waffling going on. Dr. Anthony Stine joins us now. Good morning to you, Dr. Stine. Thank you for your time today.
Good morning, and thanks for having me on.
So what's going on here? Is Pope Francis talking out of both sides of his mouth? What are we to believe in all of this?
It sounds like he is if you take what he says out of its historic context. Let us remember that kind of language, this is just a cruder version of what he has said before about traditional priests and priests who want to have a more traditional priesthood. Remember, he has said two groups of priests before that, who says we don't have women in the priesthood? Look at all the lace that you see. And then talking about how priests need to give up grandma's lace and all this stuff. I am convinced that he was directing the comments that you said there towards traditionally minded priests, whether they are traditional Latin Mass priests or priests who offer the ordinary form in a traditional way, that is what he is talking about, especially when you couple that language with what he said on 60 Minutes about conservatives, where you'll recall in that interview, he talked about conservatism in the church, not just in the church, but in the broader world, as being an ideology that essentially replaces love and all this kind of thing. He is remarkably consistent on these things when you understand his context of what he says. The one thing you didn't mention there, not only was he writing the foreword to James Martin's new book, but he has also just hired 3 new assistant bishops for Cardinal Fernandez at the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith, all of which with their mouths have affirmed the Church's teaching on marriage, but with their actions have been the most pro fiducia supplicans priests and bishops in the entire Church. They are now working directly for Cardinal Fernandez.
Yeah,
you can take what he says on one hand and what he does on the other hand and find out what he's really doing.
It causes such confusion, and I think a growing confusion among the lay faithful too, who are sort of waking up to all of this now that we've had, more than a decade of this, and they just don't know what to make of it. Many people are actually abandoning Holy Mother Church because they can't take it anymore. Like it's just so bizarre. On one hand, you will tell us that you affirm church teaching, but on the other hand, you continue to have these dysfunctional, broken men surrounding you and in higher and higher authoritative positions. It would seem very, very bizarre to say the least. Why do you suppose he does this? Dr. Stine, did we lose you?
Looks like we lost Dr. Stine. 1 second, I'll try and get him back.
All right, we'll try to get him back on the team. Let me just share my desktop with you and refer to what he was just talking about. Edward Penton reported on this just the other day. He says Pope Francis today appointed the following 3 prelates as members of the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith. All have defended the Church's moral teaching and marriage between a man and a woman. Cardinal Jose Mendonça, prefect of the Dicastery for the Culture and Education, served for some years as rector of the Capella Dorato, a private chapel in Lisbon known for ministering to homosexuals, whom he said he doesn't judge. The cardinal has also been a support of Maria Teresa, a former religious sister famous for advocating queer theology, and wrote a preface to one of her books. Now, the issue isn't administering or helping or discipling or working with people who struggle with same-sex attraction or gender dysphoria. That's totally fine. That's good. We ought to be, doing that. That's not the issue. The issue is pretending as though their behaviors are normal or acceptable or okay. Therein lies the problem. Cardinal Marcello Semeraro, I'm sure I'm getting that wrong, Semeraro, prefect of the Dicastery for the Causes of Saints, has reportedly turned his diocese into the Italian capital of the Catholic gay movement, annually hosting the Forum of Italian LGBT Christians, a group seeking to make homosexuality fully acceptable inside the church. He also wrote the foreword to a book by an Italian priest entitled Possible Love, Homosexual Persons and Christian Morality, and supported by legal recognition of homosexual civil unions. See what I'm saying? This is the problem. It's not about meeting people where they're at. It's not about, having a sort of a sympathetic heart to the struggles of people and their issues. That's not the issue. The issue is pretending as though those sins, those difficulties, those temptations are normal, acceptable, and should be just like everybody else. You're just like everybody else. It's totally fine. Therein lies the problem. Therein lies the challenge. And then, of course, there's Archbishop Bruno Forte. He was responsible for the sections on homosexuality in the controversial interim document of the First Synodal Family in the First Synod on the Family in 2014. These are issues that are confusing at best. Dr. Stine joins us again. Welcome back to the show. Sorry about the interruption there. So I was asking right before we got cut off, why do you think Pope Francis does this double talk, this crypto speak that he likes to use, digging on people in sort of casual low bar language that seems to be beneath the office of the pontificate? How do you explain that?
I think the language can go back to his early days as a bouncer. It's hard to take a person's past out of them. And I don't mean to denigrate anybody who's a bouncer for a living, although it's kind of a weird occupation if you're a Catholic. But I think that's part of it. But I think it really does go back to his saying he was made Pope to implement Vatican II. Remember the other part of Vatican II that a lot of people don't want to talk about. And that was when it was announced, the council was announced. What did Pope John the 23rd say? That we were opening the windows of the church to the world to let some fresh air in. And since then, we've been in a state of permanent aggiornamento, a permanent phase of change in the church constantly trying to adapt itself to the times, to the world. And what is the world most obsessed with right now? That sin and all the permutations of that sin that cries out to heaven for justice. That sin for which God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah and 3 other cities in the Old Testament. For whatever reason, they forget the justice of God and how these sins can be forgiven for people. Plenty of Catholics have turned their back on that sinful life and carried their cross of those kinds of inclinations, but they live a life according to the teachings of the church and are to be commended. They're some of the most courageous people you will ever meet, are those who do that. But for whatever reason, hierarchy wants to adopt the worldview of the secular world on this. And I think it goes back to what Roberto De Mattei wrote on his Patreon and in Verate Caeli and a few other places in an article published yesterday or the day before on this, that there has been an ongoing quiet infiltration of the hierarchy of the church by men with James Martin's inclinations, that they have quietly been there. And under Francis, they have not been hidden anymore, that they are out in the open running things. And it's these men who will be key to understanding how the next conclave goes, by the way. They'll be the ones assisting the bishops. They'll be the one assisting the Camerlengo. You know who the Camerlengo is right now, Joe?
Yeah, Farrell, right?
Yeah. Wasn't he Ted McCarrick's roommate? Not Ted. Yeah, Ted.
Oh, well, ask him about Maciel as well. Oh, the Legion. I think we lost Dr. Stine again. There must be a connection issue or weather storm problems in Oklahoma where he's from. But yeah, Cardinal Farrell, ask him about Maciel the next time you get a chance to talk to him. He says he didn't know anything about Maciel. Maciel, had children out of wedlock. He molested his own children as well as many others. He led a double life. And then, of course, there was Ted McCarrick, whom he lived with. And, of course, he didn't know anything about that. Although, Bishop Lopes reminds us in his homily back in 2018 that we all knew, everyone knew about Cardinal McCarrick, except for, I guess, Cardinal Farrell. Dr. Stine, are you back on the show? Yeah, who was his roommate?
Yeah, and which is why I think the most iconic video interview I've ever seen for that period, 2018, 2019, was Kevin Farrell sitting there going, I was shocked to learn about this. Yeah. Shocked. I'm like, bro, really? You're his roommate.
Wow. Right. Yes, like
roommates, adult men with roommates tend to know about the personal lives of their roommates more than they'd like to know. Having been an adult man in a secular kind of roommate situation many years ago, you tend to learn the habits of your roommate. So please don't tell us you didn't know.
It's possible for sure, but likely not, right? That's the key. And as far as Maciel goes, you might remember there was a 2014 Frontline PBS special in Secrets of the Vatican or whatever, where they interviewed Maciel's son. I mean, it was so disgusting and so disturbing a story that I think most Catholics probably never watched it. But the realities of these predators that have risen to high places, and the people who have also risen. There's a connection there that you can't just ignore. And Farrell gets to help to form and fashion the next conclave that brings about the next pontificate. So let me ask you, as we run out of time in this segment here, what are your hopes for the next conclave, the next pontificate? Do you think we're going to get more of the same? Do you think we might be brought back more to the middle?
It wouldn't surprise me if you got a pope who was old and what I call a moderate. I don't think we've had a truly conservative or traditional pope since before the council, that you would get, like, I consider Benedict and John Paul II to be moderates in the grand scheme of things in the church. It wouldn't surprise me if you got somebody like that who was older, would only be there for 3 or 4 years, a sort of a John the 23rd, but moderate, meant to be a placeholder to try to calm things down in the church. That would not surprise me. Wouldn't also surprise me is if the St. Gallen Mafia got their way. They have quietly been meeting in St. Gallen, Switzerland, and they have said that what they want is another Francis, but one who they can control. Because the one thing I will say in favor of Pope Francis unequivocally is the people most like-minded to him, he doesn't let them control him. He will sometimes come down on them like the wrath of God too, when they overreach. But he's also very forgiving of them. Lest we forget that Cardinal Tagle 2 years ago was cast aside, but now is seen at all these papal events and is his ambassador to the U.S. for the Eucharistic Congress, and looks like he's back in his favor. And he is considered, honestly, the most papabile of that swath of cardinals, which is a little surprising.
Yeah.
Because those of us who pay attention to him find him to be incredibly cringe-inducing, which may be his most endearing quality.
That's his endearing quality, eh? Dr. Stine, I'm sorry about the connection problems. Love to have you back in the after show. Hopefully we can catch up to you there. We're gonna link to returntotradition.org. It's his website where he posts the links of all of his show notes for his videos that he puts on his website, or his YouTube channel rather. Return to Tradition will link to that as well. But coming up after the break, Chris Altieri is going to be on the team today. I want to ask him about a couple of stories. One, his article about the apology of sorts that we heard about last week with Pope Francis using the Italian term faggotry. Very interesting comments there in that article. But the mysterious case that's going down in Argentina. A young bishop, the prime of his bishopric, asked to retire early. Why is that? What's going on? Why is nobody talking about it? All that and more coming up next. Don't go anywhere.
Coming up Wednesday on The Simple Truth, live at 4 p.m. Eastern, Wonder and Awe Wednesday, where we strive to be rightly filled with wonder and awe at the presence of Almighty God and all that is of Him. What do you know about Blessed Carlo Acutis? A second miracle attributed to his intercession was just recognized, and his canonization will soon be finalized, making him the first millennial saint. What stands out from his life? What can we apply to ours? We'll share the story on The Simple Truth, live at 4 p.m. Eastern.
In the New Testament's first letter of St. John, chapter 5, verses 14 and 15, we read, "And we have this confidence in him, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us in regard to whatever we ask, we know that what we have asked him for is ours." It's incredible to realize how much God loves us, what he has promised us, and what he'll give us through our trust in him. Have you prayed for the Station of the Cross today? We would be grateful if you would remember us each day in your prayers, whether it's the Most Holy Rosary of the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Chaplet of Divine Mercy, the Liturgy of the Hours, the Most Holy Sacrifice of the Mass, or any other prayers you pray throughout the day. Please also pray for the intentions of your fellow Catholic radio listeners. It's so important for us to remember to keep one another in prayer.
Station of the Cross has many ways to keep you informed about our programming. You can view the highlights of our primetime programming schedule, or the full 24/7 programming grid at both the stationofthecross.com or the free iCatholic Radio app. Just search under the Programming tab. Our website also offers a printable version for your convenience.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McClain, and here are your headline news. Fox reports Louisiana lawmakers approved law that would allow surgical castration of convicted child molesters. The bill would give judges the option to sentence someone to surgical castration after they've been convicted of aggravated sex crimes, including rape, incest, molestation against a young child, 13 or younger. Judges in Louisiana have been allowed to order those convicted of such crimes to receive chemical castrations for nearly 20 years, though that punishment has been rarely used. The bill received overwhelming approval in both the GOP-dominated chambers. Democrats account for most of the votes against it, but there was a sponsor, Senator Regina Barrow, co-sponsored the bill. CNA reports Indian Supreme Court say anti-conversion law may be unconstitutional. During a hearing concerning the anti-conversion law, the Indian Supreme Court noted that some parts of the law may seem to violate the fundamental right to religion guaranteed under Article 25 of their Constitution. 12 of India's 28 states have criminalized religious conversions, including religious conversions that are voluntary and not forcibly coerced. The laws have led to the arrest of clergy and instigated acts of violence against Christians. And Catholic Vote is reporting Catholic leader sounds alarm. Contraception bill, a Trojan horse? Catholic pro-life leader Terry Schilling warns that the Right to Contraception Act currently being pushed by Senate Democrats is a Trojan horse for subjecting children to transgender procedures. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, a Democrat from New York, has announced that chamber will vote on this legislation today. Let us pray that it does not pass. And those are your headline news. Praise be to God. Chris Altieri is joining us. He is a journalist and editor and author of 3 books, including Reading the News Without Losing Your Faith. Boy, oh boy, is that a great title or what? Reading the News Without Losing Your Faith. And he is the contributing editor of Catholic World Report, where I found a couple of articles over there that really piqued my interest. One was on the apology of sorts after Pope Francis used the faggotry term to address the Italian bishops behind closed doors. And then there was this article about a mysterious case in Argentina where a young bishop was asked to resign just the other day. We reported on it, but it still seems a bit of a mystery. So I saw this article and I asked Chris to join us. Good morning to you, Chris. Thank you for your time today.
Good morning, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Praise be to God. I want to start with the Pope's apology first, and then I want to go to Argentina. So one of the things I found very fascinating in reading your article in particular was the use of this term. There's a lot of speculation on what he meant by this. It was very derogatory. And I've said from the beginning, he's not a dumb man. Pope Francis is very intelligent. He knew what he was saying. He knew this word. You seem to indicate that as well. Is that a fair statement? Pope Francis knowingly used the term, knowing that it would probably have a shock?
Well, I'm not up in his head.
Sure.
But this was a word that he used in off-the-cuff remarks, unscripted remarks, as it were, in reply to a question from a group gathered for the Italian bishops conference meeting. It was in the new Synod Hall at the Vatican, and the Italian bishops are dealing with how to implement the 2016 Ratio Fundamentalis from the Congregation for Clergy, or what was then styled the Congregation for Clergy. That's the sort of the high-level, big, broad overview guidelines for seminary formation and for priestly formation, and each sort of national or regional conference then takes and implements it, tweaks it as needed, right? that document says that men with deep-seated homosexual tendencies or who were committed to something that we could, with reasonable shorthand, describe as the gay agenda, they oughtn't be admitted to seminary. They don't let them into formation. So it's a live issue and a practical matter for the Italian bishops who are dealing with this right now. And Francis expressed himself in terms that were colorful, fair to say incendiary. I won't quote him. It's a family show.
I've done it many times. Don't worry about it. I mean, he says too much faggotry. He actually uses the term "too much faggotry." Again, it's like you don't use a term like that.
The Italian, right?
But that's got a shock value to it. I have to believe he did that intentionally. And the way you characterize it in your article also caught my attention. He was trying to make a gentleman's agreement behind closed doors with these bishops to say,
that's
"Hey,
the interesting thing. Francis is always interested in stirring the pot." Okay, that's he's not he's not a dumb guy. You said it just fine yourself earlier, right? Whether and to what extent this whole thing is orchestrated, I don't know. It's hard to believe that, he also decries the chattiness of clerics in general and of bishops in particular, right? So he's in a room with 230 of his closest friends. I can't imagine him thinking it's not going to leak.
Right. Well, that was the other question I wanted to ask you. Do you think so? Do we know who leaked it? We know it was like an anonymous source at the Vatican who talked to 3 of the bishops. That's how I saw the reports. But I wondered, when I read about in your article about the gentleman's agreement, like he's trying to say, listen, stop, back off, slow it down, and it gets leaked. I wondered whether or not the Italian bishops wanted it leaked, thinking, it's pure speculation on my part here, but I wondered if they didn't want it leaked because they knew there'd be tremendous backlash over this term that he used in Italian. And there was quite a bit of backlash. In fact, many homosexual priests have come out of the closet on social media to express their unhappiness towards this term in the Pope's comments there. Does this give the Italian bishops a pass to not have to listen to this now? They can actually proceed with their intent to admit more homosexual men into the seminary. What say you, Chris Altieri?
I don't know. Look. The CEI, as we call it in the business, right? That's the Conferenza Episcopale Italiana. The Italian Bishops' Conference is a peculiar organization among bishops' conferences. Its powers aren't typical, and they're the bishops of the Pope's the bishops of the Pope's home country and backyard, right? The conference exists sort of precisely to allow the national bishops. It's within the context of Italy, which is very particular, very peculiar in that the Pope up until 1870 was a temporal ruler over a significant portion of the country, right? So the conference itself exists in part, at least, in order to give the institutional church a corporate voice, as it were, that isn't immediately or directly a wing of the apostolic palace, right? All sorts of considerations like that need to be taken before one measures anything that they do. And then you have the culture of a very long established Italian church that's very much different from most other modern episcopacies and episcopal benches. One of the consistent efforts, I think it's fair to say, throughout the Francis pontificate that we've seen has been his attempt to reform the Italian episcopate and reform the structure of the church in Italy institutionally. Lots of dioceses. He tends to think there are too many, so he's done a lot of combining sees. I can't think off the top of my head of him suppressing any outright, right? But reducing the number of bishops is something that he's been interested in doing, who have care of souls and jurisdictions of their own, right? So you'll find a lot of Italian bishops who are bishops of 3 different places, 3 different jurisdictions, all combined in persona episcopi, right? Before we begin to speculate on what the bishops themselves may or may not do, let's take a step back and realize that their chessboard is different.
Interesting. That brings up the Argentine question in my mind, because the issue of bishops. So in Italy, they seem to be going more like the American model. We have bigger dioceses with more parishes, less priests, kind of a model. It's very interesting because Italy was always smaller dioceses, and that proportion or that ratio between bishop, priests, and priest layfolk was always smaller. So that's very interesting turn of events. But in Argentina, you wrote this story. The Mestra resignation is a mess on multiple levels. We're going to link to both of these articles today from the Catholic World Report in our show notes, but catholicworldreport.com is the website. So this is interesting. It's a mystery. What in the world is going on in Argentina? Why would the Pope ask such a young bishop? He's very young, got a lot of life left in him. It seems to be a trend these days that we have all these bishops that are being put out to pasture well before their time, especially in a day and a time where there is shortages. There are vacancies and such. What is the story in Argentina?
Well, I can't remember which of my friends noted it, but there may be a crisis in vocations to the priesthood, but there's never a crisis in vocations to the episcopacy. Look, what's going on in Argentina? I don't know. I don't think anybody does right now, and it's going to be up to local reporters to suss out the story there. I wish I were there, but I'm not. It's an interesting one. It's a head scratcher, that's for sure, right? Best I can tell right now, the catalyst for the unrest for the shakeup that has gone on involving 2 places similarly named, but several hundred miles apart from one another, are La Plata and Mar del Plata. Now, Mar del Plata is maybe about 300 miles, almost due south of Buenos Aires, on the southern part of that little peninsula that juts out. If you folks at home are remembering your South American geography, right? La Plata is essentially a suburb of Buenos Aires, and it's its own metropolis, right? The seas became vacant in a series of moves going back to the 2023 departure of Victor Manuel Fernandez, now Cardinal Fernandez, an old friend of the Pope, a protege of sorts, a ghostwriter of at least a couple of or at least one controversial document, and the author of another as soon as he got to Rome to take the corner office at the DDF, right? So there's something fishy about that situation, because the 2 guys who were brought in to Mar del Plata over the past year have they've retired before they were
Hold that thought right there, Chris. Chris, we're right at a break. We're going to come right back, pick up right there where we left off. We're talking with Chris Altieri. He's an editor over at the Catholic World Report, catholicworldreport.com. We're going to put links to his two articles that we're discussing today in the show notes over at thestationofthecross.com/ACT. But more is coming up right after this break. The doublespeak, the confusion, all of that and more with Chris Altieri coming up next. Don't go anywhere. Be right back.
Ask a Priest Live, weekdays at 6 p.m. Eastern on the Station of the Cross. We'll bring you a different priest each weekday where you can participate in a live Q&A on the topics that matter. To get your question in for Father, call 1-877-511-5483 while the show is live. Email us anytime at priests@thestationofthecross.com or visit our show page at thestationofthecross.com/askapriest.
The Station of the Cross began broadcasting in Buffalo, New York in 1999. Since then, our listening areas have multiplied and expanded into several states. While our mission is to grow the Catholic faith through radio and other media outlets, our apostolate is supportive of but independent from your local diocese. Through your generosity, we are able to inspire countless listeners with the gospel and help lead them to a parish to be spiritually nourished by the sacraments.
Download the app to take our programming with you wherever you go. Hear what listeners are saying about the regularly updated iCatholic Radio app.
The programs on iCatholic Radio are uplifting, educational, and have served to deepen my faith as a Catholic. Thank you for this amazing station.
Download the free iCatholic Radio app in your Android or Apple store today. If you already have the app, please consider giving us a 5-star review or telling a friend about it. Hear a powerful sermon you need to share with a loved one? Maybe there's a guest, prayer, or teaching segment that deserves another listen. You can listen to any of our network-produced programs at your convenience by finding us wherever you enjoy podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Podbean, and the free iCatholic Radio app. Be uplifted in your faith. Listen today at thestationofthecross.com or on your favorite podcasting platform.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McLean. Praise be to God. Chris Altieri is our guest. He's got an article over at the Catholic World Report that we're discussing. The Mestre resignation is a mess on multiple levels. And Chris, welcome back to the show. You say in your article, La Plata became vacant in July of 2023 when Pope Francis plucked the man who was then styled Archbishop Victor Manuel Tucho Fernandez out of the see and set him up in the corner office of the Doctrine Dicastery in Rome, where the fellow now styled Cardinal Tucho has not been an entirely uncontroversial presence. That's an understatement, I would say. Mestre was Pope Francis's pick to succeed Tucho in La Plata, and he is now out after significantly less than a year. Both men Francis picked to succeed Mestre in Mar del Plata quit before they even started. They quit before they even started. What exactly is the problem? Like, is there any inclination of what exactly is causing the mess? Like, what was the actual scandal that goes on there? Do we even know? And why would these men quit before they start? And why would a bishop that had been selected be asked to resign in less than a year? Chris, what do you say?
Yeah, well, there were different sorts of troubles that the fellows had. One, Baligna had some health issues that were well documented, and you know, that was all above board. He had eye surgery, and you know, wasn't recovering, I guess. Or in any case, he decided that it was better for him not to take up the assignment. Right. The other fellow, a fellow by the name of Larrazabal, had some, Gustavo Larrazabal had some unfortunate allegations against him, and decided to stand down despite a vote of confidence from interestingly from the nunciature in Argentina, right, expressing full confidence in his ability to lead, things like that. Yeah, it was
even with those allegations.
Yeah, but people say a lot of things. One of the reasons that we have allegations and then processes is so that we run them down. I'm not sure that it would have been, my first pick, but it seems to me that the really interesting part of this, that either of them would have been my first pick. But what is apparent in any case is that the vetting process is happening. It's pretty fast and loose because these Episcopal vacancies need to be filled in an awful hurry for some reason. The picture is of a headman, Francis, in Rome, who wanted his guy in the important job there, and wasn't too terribly concerned about who or what he disturbed in order to make that happen. And now he's playing catch up in his home country, where there's a bit of trouble. How all of this shakes out, I'm not sure, but it is interesting to me from as an analyst, because it gives us, I think, something to examine, right? In terms of the Pope's modus governandi, his mode of governing.
Yeah, I loved how you ended this article, sort of quoting a line from Cool Hand Luke, the movie Cool Hand Luke. What we've got here is a failure to communicate, where the warden beats a prisoner.
I can hear you doing Strother Martin there. It's not a bad one. What we've got here is failure to communicate, right? Yeah, yes. This is after he's savaged Luke and the whole exactly, I don't want to ruin the movie for people who haven't seen it, but
it's been out a while. Spoilers ahead. Hey, but the point that I was bringing up, I laughed at that. I chuckled at that because it reminds me of the old saying, the beatings will continue until morale improves. It feels that way for a lot of lay folk in the church hearing these headlines, going through these stories. It feels a bit like the beatings just are relentless. Every day there's a new headline out. And especially, let me go back as we wrap up. We're only a few minutes left with Chris Altieri. Let me go back to the Pope Francis stories over this slur that he used last week. And then this week with endorsing Jimmy Martin's book. And of course, we heard that he responded personally to a letter to a homosexual man who was pursuing a vocation and got rejected from a seminary, and encouraging him to continue. That seems to be sort of talking out of both sides of your mouth. It's confusing at best, and something you said in your article on an apology of sorts over slur. Again, we're gonna link to it. You talked about how Pope Francis always wants people sort of second guessing him. That he kind of seems to want people to never truly understand what he's thinking or what he's doing. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, I wouldn't have put it in there if I didn't think it was fair. Although I might tweak it a little bit. I'm not sure that he wants people second guessing him. I think he wants people just guessing. Never knowing what he's getting up to now, or let alone what he's going to get up to next. One of the ways that I've put it before isn't so much that Francis says one thing and does another, is that he says both things and then does whatever he wants. Which is that's one way to do it. If that's if that's the way you like to govern, well, he's the guy in the job and he's going to do that. I'm not going to complain from a professional point of view. It means we're never starved for copy on the Vatican beat.
For sure.
But how effective that can be long term, I don't know. And one of the things that it does create is a situation in which it's very difficult to discern the substance of his pontificate. You subtract the narrative, right? Either of the sort of the revolutionary reformer with the Midas touch on the one hand, or the evil modernist Jesuit heretic on the other. I think I don't have a whole lot of time for either of those, right? He's neither. And it seems evident to me that he isn't. But what's left? And I'm not sure. I can't. I don't see it.
Therein lies the problem, that the average Catholic, suburban-going Catholic, stay-at-home mom, what have you, has to sort through all of this. Because it's rocking the faith, it's rocking the world. Catholics are arguing between each other, and their co-workers, their family members, and the scandal just continues to grow, and the confusion lingers. I don't mean to minimize here. Okay, the situation is bad, right? So don't get me wrong. I'm not here to tell you there's nothing to see. But you mentioned my book, Reading the News Without Losing the Faith, and I opened that book by telling a story about how I advised a friend of mine. If you're not getting paid to read the Vatican pages, you could safely ignore them. That's good.
Which is strange advice to come from a guy who writes them.
Right.
But nobody ever accused me of being a good businessman. These things are bad, okay? But the bark of Peter will come safely to port. What condition she's in when she does finally call, all bets are off on that. But everybody calm down. Things aren't as bad as they look. They're worse.
Well said. Chris Altieri, thank you for your time today. We're going to be linking to an apology of sorts over slur, and the Mestre resignation is a mess on multiple levels, both at catholicworldreport.com. catholicworldreport.com. We'll put them in the show notes as well. Chris Altieri, God bless you. God love you. Thank you for your time and your comments today. Appreciate having you on the team. Love to have you back. We're going to say that's going to do it for today on the radio side of our show. If you can hang out with us tomorrow, we've got a very interesting story coming to us about Bruno Cornicchiola and Our Lady of Revelation. It's going to be a fascinating conversation. I hope you can join us then. God bless you. God love you. We'll see you.
So what did you think of today's show? Let's discuss that right now in the After Show. Your take on the After Take. Comment, interact live with me and the team. All you need to do is search for one of our live video feeds on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, LinkedIn, and elsewhere. Simply search for the Station of the Cross, Joe McClain, or A Catholic Take. I'm looking forward to seeing you and interacting with you directly. It all starts right now. It's the After Show.
And we're back. Welcome to the After Show, everyone.
Good morning. What we've got here is a failure to communicate. How many people have seen Cool Hand Luke? Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you've seen Cool Hand Luke.
More importantly, how many eggs can you eat, Joe?
I don't know. I've never tried. Although I eat eggs practically every day. I think yesterday I did not eat eggs, though. But almost every single day I eat eggs. Eggs are great for you. It's a power food, so good for you. Yeah, I do too. Farm fresh if you can get them. Anna, good morning to you. Damon, Mateus, yo, what up? Apparently you are very early. You're in California, man, and you never sleep. We got to get you we got to find a way to get you to go to sleep. Troy Lockett, good morning to you. Praise be to God. Glad you're here today. Paul, our friend from Buffalo, good morning to you. Yvonne, Karen Andy Bashaw, Becky Hansen, Eileen, Janice, Pedro, good morning to you. Mike K, glad to have you back. Karen Collins, Sci-Fi Mike is on the team today over on the Telegram group. Love to see that. Praise be to Jesus. T-Storm is there. Jen is there. Good morning. Mimi is there. Praise be to God. Good morning, everybody. Was mandatory in school to watch what? Cool Hand Luke? You had to watch Cool Hand Luke in school? What? That's crazy. Okay, Back in my day, Jake, you were way too young. Actually, I don't know. You might be on the verge. You might be like on the fringe. You might have gone to like a school that had this. But back in my day, they would have they'd wheel in the cart, the media cart.
Oh yeah,
it had the projectors and the reel to reel. You know, the film reel, and you would listen to the film reel going the whole time. That was so good.
We had VHS tapes.
We had those too.
Yeah,
we had those too.
But we still had VHS tapes. Yep. In high school,
we would have the big boob tube though.
Yeah.
Did you have an LCD screen or did you have the boob tube? Like
it was
strapped down.
Yeah,
it would be strapped down to the cart with a big giant strap.
It was the CRT. It was everything. Yep.
Okay.
And
the CRT, the cathode ray tube.
I believe Dr. Stine is back with us.
Is he? Welcome back. Praise be to God. Sorry about the connection issues. It's a never-ending battle here on the show to prevent people from cutting each other off. I don't know why, but it is.
I in between when I was here before and now I was editing a video and I very nearly started exporting it, which could put my ability to participate in jeopardy on my end because of bandwidth. So,
I get it. By the way, side note, rabbit hole. I'm going to be in Oklahoma. I'm going to Clear Creek Abbey for my 50th birthday, and that's coming up in July.
About 2.5 hours away from me. And I haven't advertised this yet, but in July, my wife and I and kids will be taking a road trip, and I will be doing my live streams and video production from hotel rooms during that time.
Oh,
because the news never stopped. Yeah, well, I did that after the tornado came within 100 feet of my house last year. So, we are doing that again.
That's pretty close. That's pretty close.
My in-laws' 45th wedding anniversary is coming, so. They live in Portland, but we're driving to La Grande, Oregon, which is in Eastern Oregon. I don't want to go to Portland. It is, and it's run by sociopaths.
It is.
My mother's like trying to get us to move back to Oregon. She's like, what policies here are keeping you from wanting to move back? I'm like, well, they just banned guns, basically banned guns in Oregon. They kept the state locked down They kept the state locked down for 2 years. If I decide to, they try to restrict homeschooling, and it's practically a hate crime to say men are men and women are women, and you can't pretend to be something you're not in that state. Yeah. Need I go
Oklahoma.
On? Well, besides the abortion thing.
Yeah. Oklahoma is one of the most, it's definitely one of the most homeschool friendly states. It's a Second Amendment friendly state. It's got some of the lowest taxes in the country. Taxes are better than Texas.
Lower.
And they're going to go lower
too.
Yeah,
they're getting rid of the sales tax on groceries, which is great for helping the poor.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also talking about getting rid of the state income tax too, which I'm completely fine with.
Deo gracias. That's why I've been praying and asking and hoping that maybe I could move the family either to southern Missouri or northeast Oklahoma. If you live in the northeast Oklahoma area, it's a sweet spot. Within an hour, you'll have like 4 or 5 TLM options.
Well, right. If you lived in northeast Oklahoma, you'd probably end up going to my parish if you were going to go with the FSSP, because I go to Mass in Tulsa. Claremore, the town in the movie Oklahoma, the classic movie, they just got hit by an EF3 tornado.
Don't mention that out loud. My wife will hear you.
Well, I will say this much: that part of the state doesn't get hit as often as where I live.
From your lips to God's ears, praise be to God. By the way, I discovered I have a new superpower on YouTube. I wish Facebook and Rumble would give me equal options. They don't, and I don't know why, but I can pin comments now in YouTube. So I've been pinning comments during the show today, just to say thanks for being on the team and being a part of it.
You've been confusing everyone. They thought it was a conspiracy,
Right, well,
they're like, why is my comment pinned? I'm pinning comments.
I suspected who was doing it, but I told them I know nothing.
Oh, wait, you can pin the live chat comments.
Yes, I've been pinning comments today.
That.
Yeah,
I've never tried to do that. I usually pin the people on in my normal videos who do like a little super thanks or whatever. Here's a little tip, and I usually pin that. But I've never tried that with my live stream. I'll have to do that tomorrow morning.
Yes, so I pinned a few of them. I'd just glance over, I'd find one, I'd pin it. So I wasn't explaining anything, but I was pinning anyway. Happy birthday, Joe. Yeah, thank you, Laura. I appreciate it. Go ahead.
Do Do you think Bishop Schneider is going to get in trouble for essentially helping those quote autonomous nuns in Florida by consecrating their new monastery?
Fascinating concept. It's like, it's such a think about. So all the Pope's planners are going to be like, you can't have autonomous religious communities. You're not allowed to do that. But what if they self-identify as religious? But you're okay with people who self-identify with stuff, just not Orthodox solid Catholics who want to be sold out for the faith. Like that's the only thing you're opposed to. It seems like we live in such bizarre times that we rationalize in weird ways. And so you have this nun. You covered the story well. You have this nun, and she gets removed from the Carmelites in Georgia. She still feels the call, wants to live a solitary life. Would they have canceled St. Anthony of the Desert for doing the same thing? Did he ask permission from the Holy See to start religious communities and monasteries in the desert? No, he didn't ask. He just went out there and did that. But we live in a world today where you have to call the Home Office and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this today. Is it okay with you? And so there's going to be, I don't know. I think he'll get in trouble, but I don't know. If he was going to get in trouble, wouldn't he have gotten in trouble already? Like, I don't know.
I think auxiliary bishops are probably the most vulnerable after priests. That's why you don't see too many of the bishops speaking up anymore. But yeah. I kind of find this funny because I was working on a video for some synodal synthesis report that came out of a country. And then I did that live stream. And it was just like night and day, right? So you have all this preaching of synodality and dialogue and putting more authority into the laity's hands. Meanwhile, let's issue a document called Cor Orans, which crushes traditional religious orders, puts them under the governance of modernists, like extremists. And if they dare to speak up, well, you're going to be crushed and your property now belongs to the local bishop who will sell it and presumably give a cut to the Holy See.
I think that's the rub, isn't it? They don't have control over it. So they don't like this because it's a system in which they have no authority, say, or control over. But they're just religious women, so they can't even provide the sacraments to the lay faithful, which is something else they're very concerned about. So what can they do? A group of ladies have decided to live in community with personal vows, living the austere life, and wearing a habit, and you can't do anything about it. I mean, like it's probably driving them nuts.
How dare they want to pray all day, right? They work enough to make their jam or whatever it is they're going to sell to keep the lights on. Then they pray all day.
Milk the cow. Yeah, it's offensive, Yeah, that's the world we live in. Hey, Dawn the Highlander, good morning. Restore Justice, good morning to you. Brandon Joseph, welcome back to the team. Andrew Colsar, I hope I said that right. Good morning to you. Miriam. Coleslaw. It's not coleslaw. Andrew, that was not me, okay? Direct your hate mail to producer Jake. Laura, good morning to you. Miriam, good morning. Kilroy Jones. Chris Schoonmaker, good morning to you. Praise be to God. The Lost Creole is back. Good morning. Janice, good morning to you. Eric JMJ, welcome back. Good morning to you. Chesty, good morning. Semper Fi, glad to see you on the team today. Praise be to God. Evelyn, good morning to you. Thanks for hanging out. Jackson Pickney, good morning to you. I'm going to pin your comment. I'm pinning comments today, people. How do I do that? Oh, right
Joe's
there.
Gone
okay,
mad.
got it.
He's gone mad with power.
I am the mad pinner. Andrea, good morning to you. From where? National Harbor, Maryland, did you say? Maryland? Good morning. Thanks for hanging out. Joe asking for tickets to Niagara Falls event for my birthday. Oh, you want to come to the Niagara Falls event? Well, reach out. I'm sure we can figure something out. Praise be to God. You'd have to show up, though. It's, Niagara Falls, way, like you go look for the Arctic Circle, turn right. That's where we are. Praise be to God. It's going to be beautiful. I'm going to have, most of my family's going to be with me up there. I can't wait. They've never seen Niagara Falls. I've been blessed to be there several times. So, and I'm going to test the theory that you can survive the Niagara Falls in a barrel. I'm going to put one of my kids in it and throw. It's going to be fun. You're going to want to be a part of that. Paul, good morning to you. What's that? Have you done that yet, Jay?
I said it builds character. Yeah. Oh, loads of times. Loads of times.
You guys do it like a school trips, like you guys go to Niagara Falls when you were kids, and they threw you in the barrel.
Passage. Put you over the falls in a barrel.
It's a rite of passage. James, 6897. Edward Clancy, good morning to you. Says, good morning. All pasture-raised fresh eggs make commercially farmed eggs seem tasteless. Yes, that is true. You know what else is incredibly amazing? Yeah, of course, I hunt, so venison is fantastic meat. Love it. My family loves it. But when we have we've gone in with other families to like have a cow slaughtered from a local ranch. It is amazing how good that tastes. I mean, nothing like the stuff coming out of your grocery store. So good. What,
sort of. I will say this. I used to be like some people know I have a second channel. I haven't really updated it in a while about like the carnivore diet. And I usually just talk about food news and some tips on how to survive the diet. Well, something happened. It was weird. I have no idea what happened, but there was like a switch was flipped where I could not even stand the smell of grass-fed beef anymore.
Why?
I have like probably an eighth of a cow still, right? And like if you lived in Oklahoma, I'd offer you a really good deal.
I'd
like
eat
a ridiculously good deal to get rid of it. I'd be like, how does $2 a pound sound for grass-fed beef?
Oh
right?
man, that's a steal.
I would drive in 2 hours to get it to you with coolers. But the thing is, like, I cooked something. I don't even remember what the cut was. I choked it down. It was just like out of the blue. I couldn't do it anymore. And the next day, I made my wife some spaghetti using the ground beef, and the smell nearly drove me out of the house. Why? I don't know what happened. I can't handle the grass-fed beef anymore. And this wasn't even 100% grass-fed, which is hard to find. This is a local rancher who grain finishes like for the last month or two, just to get it some fat.
They always do. Yeah, they beef it up that way. Yeah.
But the thing is, if you're doing a carnivore diet, you want that fat. It's why I like venison, or at least I did. It's a little gamey, so maybe I can't do it anymore. But venison's always super lean, and
I love venison.
The only way I've been able to lose weight recently is I've only been able to lose weight recently doing 70% fat or more lately.
Yeah,
I guess it's age.
Part of my carnivore journey has been because of your carnivore channel. That was one of the first time you and I ever talked was to talk about carnivore, and I lost 150 pounds on the carnivore diet. I'm sort of in a maintenance mode now, sort of cruising. I still should lose more, but I've been cruising for a while now, sort of maintaining. But elk, grew up on elk, says Chesty. Elk is fantastic. Elk, the venison, moose, buffalo. Oh, so good. All those meats are really good. Now, when it comes to venison. So we butcher our own. I don't send it off to somebody else to do. And in my opinion, venison tastes better when you take the time to remove as much of that sinew as possible. I have found that when you send it to a butcher, their job is to spend the least amount of time possible butchering your deer. So they are really great at butchering fast. They're masters at the knife. But they also aren't going to take their sweet time making sure to remove as much of that sinew as possible. It's that sinew, the connective tissue, that in my opinion anyway, creates that sort of more gamey flavor. When we take our time, we do right on our dining room table, we just spend I'll spend a few days butchering a deer just to try to get off as much of the sinew as possible. And we love the taste. We have never had any issues with it. It's been great. So I definitely feel like it's a game changer. The problem is living in the great state of Texas, where 98% of the land is privately owned, it can be hard to be a 501c3 religious broadcaster and afford to go hunting. So I'm always at the whim of the charity of people who own land to let me go hunt there. But I'm guessing anyway, hopefully we'll get another chance.
A lot of landowners there charge a fee, don't they?
Huge fee. It's a big business in the state of Texas. It's a big business in the state of Texas. And if you went back to Oregon, you could hunt bear. They have bear tags in Oregon.
I was reminded how dangerous bears are with that stupid "would you choose the bear or not"
that was a fun meme
thing discussion.
That was annoying.
Yeah, it was. It was because it showed how unhinged a lot of feminists are.
Yeah.
Although it
showed their incapability of understanding per capita statistics.
Right, and it also provided a great example, a great opportunity to tell them, hey, now you know why we don't want men in the women's restrooms.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, so if let me give some shout outs real quick. Lori, good morning to you. Don Paddock, good morning to you. Linda, I'm sorry that the cancel culture is coming after you. Would definitely be assured of my prayers for you and for your business. I know what that's like. I've experienced it a bit myself, especially under the Gloria Purvis debacle that happened a few years ago. It can get ugly, but hold the course, stand fast on your principles and your faith, and let the haters hate. Hey, Jane, good morning to you. Junior Barra, good morning to you. Patty, Rachel Jordan, good morning to you. Praise be to God. I was going to say, so Eastern Oregon is trying to secede to join Idaho. It's not new. They've been after this for a long time. What do you think? Do you think that's ever going to be possible? No way. It'll never happen.
No way, unless Oregon really leans into their progressive bigotry towards conservatives. Say, yeah, go ahead, go away. But they can't afford to do that because they will lose, I think, 2 electoral votes, which they won't let that happen. And they will lose a lot of agriculture money and natural resources that are out in Eastern Oregon. I can't see Congress letting that happen either. Although a Republican Congress, which looks like might happen now, thanks to the psychopathic overreach of Biden, that might happen. I could see a conservative Congress letting that happen, but I can't see a normal state of affairs disrupting the country that much. But it's not just Oregon that wants to secede. It's also Eastern Washington that's been wanting to do this. Northern California has been wanting to do this. Like some of the maps of greater Idaho that I've seen would make Idaho gigantic and would make that state like 15 electoral votes. It would be gigantic geography and 15 electoral votes. Can you imagine what would happen? But that's the other part. Do you think Oregon would let the GOP get consistently 2 more electoral college votes?
No,
I don't see it would happen.
Of course not. Yeah, they're never going to allow that. But at the same time, I think of Idaho, and Idaho's a bit of a weird bird, though. It's got a lot of the sort of the militant groups that are out there, because of the sort of the policies and whatever it allows them to have their compounds and camps. So there's a lot of that going down out there. There's a lot of Californians that move to Idaho. They as they're like a cheaper version of California, and how kind of like Austin. We have a lot of Californians in Austin, and it's not a good thing, right? So like I think Idaho rather is made up of a lot of eclectic groups of Americans. I don't know that even if they did secede and create a greater Idaho, how conservative it would really be. Libertarian, probably. Conservative, doubtful. Not even the conservatives are conservative these days. So I think it would be kind of a weird place.
It'd be a red state, without question. You got to remember something about California transplants, because this is in Oklahoma. The local tag agencies, they say they get a Oregon or California driver's license turned in once a day in my town of 30,000 people.
Wow.
Once a day. And most of the license plates that I see from California are on giant pickup trucks. These are not, for the most part, hippie progressives who want to turn your old Western-looking downtown of your dying downtown into some sort of hipster bar. That's not these guys, right? These are the people who come up here and lament, "Dang, there's no barbecue culture here," right? Or, "Dang, they're like are very happy that they can do their farming or do their agriculture work that they left Eastern California for." It's why I kind of chuckle whenever I hear somebody saying if California keeps doing what it's doing, it'll be a red state. I'm like, for it to be a red state, you'll probably need the big one to like sink most of Western California into the sea. That's the only way that's going to happen, because without question, the reason that you see like fast food prices exploding, aside from inflation, is because of the minimum wage laws in California. And for instance, did you hear this? The governor of California has just authorized more direct payments from the state of California to people to get them through inflation. The government has decided in California that inflation is solved by more inflation, because
of course
inflation is putting more money into the money supply. These guys
Why don't we just keep printing it? I don't know what your problem is. Just print the money. Forget it. Just $1 billion, and you don't have to print it. Just go totally digital and just tell everybody, hey, you got $1 billion. You don't need to work anymore. Just live off the government tea. It's fine. Totally fine.
Right. That's why one of the main inflationary drivers has been Joe Biden's student loan reforms, is paying off of people's student loan debt. even though I don't exactly understand why it works that way, because it's a government ledger that you can just cancel out. That shouldn't require money to be put in the money supply, but for whatever reason, it drives inflation.
You could just
and he keeps
not
doing
require people to pay it back. Yeah. Yeah, we live in bizarre times, to say the least. Hey, by the way, James 16897 points out lamb and mutton. Oh man, lamb chops, so good.
Lamb is great.
So
especially
good.
Especially Australian lamb. They do something. They have some way of raising it where the gaminess that people don't like is muted.
It's the Vegemite. It's the Vegemite.
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
It's the Vegemite. Oh man, lamb. The flavor explosion in a lamb chop is just worth the price of admission. I don't care what they're charging. Pay it. Pay all. Take my money. Give me that lamb chop. It's so good.
In Edmond, Oklahoma, there's somebody who raises lamb, and you can buy whole lamb there from them.
Oh man. Oh yes, sir. Yes,
we used to have sheep when I was a kid on the farm.
Also, Walmart's one of the best places. Walmart's one of the best places to get lamb.
Oh,
Sosa's Club, which is run by Walmart. Those are the stores you can get lamb at. Never seen it at Kroger or Safeway kind of places.
I think Wegmans has
Granted, I don't have either of those in Oklahoma.
James says it's cheap in Romania. I bet it is. I bet it is. You might. It's interesting because like the Lewis and Clark expedition, I've said this before, they got, by the time they made it to the Pacific Northwest, they were living off of elk. And, I'd be like, are you kidding me? That's amazing. I would love to live off of elk for a while. But they got so sick and tired of eating elk. I wonder, James, do you get sick and tired of eating lamb because you have it so often, or it's so abundant, like it's like a staple? Do you get tired of it? I don't know if I could get tired of the lamb. It's so just flavorful and good. I just love it every time we can get our hands on it. The store across the street used to sell it. Now they don't, so we have to go somewhere else to find it now. But I would, if I could, move and start my older middle son wants to create like a homestead. He's feeling fairly called to homesteading and marriage. He's not discerning a relationship at the moment, but that's what he says he's called to. So we're thinking about if I can somehow find a way to help him provide for that with some land. He can start the process of, maybe a cow pair or some lambs, or I don't know, something to start the process with. And he's already had the experience. Yeah, he's already had the experience of hunting with me, butchering, of course, and that. So, I would
start a
love
homesteading dating site.
With what?
Start a homesteading dating site. Homesteadersonly.com or something.
Yeah.
I had a good laugh when I moved out here and saw an advertisement on TV for farmersonly.com. That made me laugh when I saw that.
I'm pretty sure that's legitimately where my sister met her husband, was on farmersonly.com.
Yeah.
Let the memes commence.
Farmers only match.
That's funny. That's so funny. By the way, I used to live in Oklahoma. I went to broadcasting school back in the 90s when I got out of the Marine Corps in Oklahoma City, in Del City, actually. Oklahoma is a wonderful place. It's a beautiful place. I'm a little worried that it's a little too overpopulated these days. Back in the day when I lived there was like 1 million people in the entire state. And I live in Houston, where there's 7 million people in the metro area. So I hear now it's like up to 4 million. That's a massive increase in population.
But
does it feel busy?
I don't feel crowded out. No, unless you go to the cities, which always feel busy.
Yeah.
Once you leave, I live in Shawnee, and when you leave Shawnee, it's very clear that it's just open land in all directions. I don't drive east of Shawnee very often, and when I do, I don't go east of Seminole, which is about a 15-minute drive, depending on how I drive, which route I take. But after that, it's just big and empty until you get to Arkansas.
Woohoo! So that's what I'm talking about.
My drive to Mass, I go through probably 3 small towns before I get to Tulsa, and it's a 93-mile drive. Not counting the places where it says "Welcome to this town," and there's literally nothing but a house on the side of the road. Not counting those places.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
I don't think of it as being overpopulated. That could have happened if Tulsa was on the short list of places to get a Tesla operation center at, and it barely happened. Instead, it went to Texas. If that had happened, I'd be a little worried because I'm afraid a lot of liberals would move to keep their jobs. Although, because Tulsa is one of the big, like one of the more liberal hubs of Oklahoma. Norman being like the biggest liberal hub in the whole state because of the University of Oklahoma. Yeah. A lot of the places in Tulsa and Norman remind me of Portland in a lot of ways. They tried to actually defund their police or cut their police budgets dramatically in Norman, and that did not go well. It didn't go over well with the local population.
What a dumb move, especially in a college town. Are you kidding?
I will say this. For anybody thinking about moving to Oklahoma, I did a double take the first time I saw a strip club. And the reason I did a double take is because I hadn't seen one in many, many months since I'd moved there. Because in Portland, it's like you throw a rock in Portland and you hit one of those, even if you're near a school. Where in Oklahoma, it's like, wow, that's what that is over there. That's surprising because you just don't see them anymore. So they keep that stuff under. They tend to keep a tight wrap on that.
We're pretty blessed in the sense where we live that there's nothing like that around here. But you go south of town and they're all over the place. The billboards are all over the place. And I always cringe driving around the city of Houston just because we might see a billboard like that. You go to Dallas and you get inundated. You go on a road trip, you go up I-45 or I-35, you're going to be inundated with these adult shop billboards or strip club billboards. And I'm like, man, I got kids in the car. Like, what the heck? If you guys elect me the Holy Roman Emperor, I will make that not only illegal, I'll make it, you can execute the people who put that stuff up. Okay. So, hey, another reason number 777 to vote for me as the next Holy Roman Emperor. So get your votes in early, vote often, repeat the process, ask your neighbors to do the same. Eric JMJ says, oh, I'm from Montana and there's a lot of Californians who moved there too. You know, Montana, I have to say, Montana was high on my bucket list of places to go. Very high. I've always wanted to go to Big Sky Country. It always looks so amazing when I saw videos or postcards or images of it. You know, the old, the rugged marble man-like country. I always wanted to go there. And then when I went there, I found it to be just kind of like overpriced and weird in some ways, which was disappointing. There's a lot. It seems like it's a purple state more than anything. Is that fair, Eric? Let me know. Is Montana a purple state? I went there during the pandemic and I was so put off by the whole "where's your mask" thing. I'm like, it's Montana. You're supposed to be, socially distancing by culture anyway. This is Montana. What are we talking about? Wyoming, however, kind of the opposite. Wyoming didn't embrace any of that stuff. It seems they acted like it didn't even wasn't going on, which I appreciated. I love that. Except for, of course, the national parks there who, went into full lockdown, didn't have the convenience stores open, the gas stations, any of that stuff. So that was a real disappointment as far as that goes. But the rest of the state was great. Kayla the mechanic says cities in Montana are starting to tilt in the wrong way. Starting? I don't know. I think they've been at it for a little while now. It's unfortunate. Why is it that the liberal left always dominates in some of the most beautiful places our country has to offer? Portland, Oregon, being an example of that. California, the coast of California.
Locusts go where the food is.
The Provincetown, Algonquin, Maine. I mean, you go to some of the more beautiful places in America, and you're going to find the liberal people own the place. Why is that? Could it be that everyone recognizes goodness, truth, and beauty and wants to own it and keep it for themselves and prevent others from having it too? I don't know. Maybe.
It's easy to turn a beautiful nature into an idol. Much easier than to say turn a blighted urban landscape or some less than what most people consider attractive and natural environment into an idol. It's probably part of it. The environmentalist message was co-opted by the left a long time ago, when real environmentalists tend to be conservationists and they tend to be game hunters and ranchers and other people who require healthy land to be able to do the things that they do every day. It's easy to, if most of the forest fires in this country are because of government regulations on the management of those lands. They're just insane regulations. And they think they can solve that by new and better regulations, when maybe you should cut out a lot of the regulations first except for some obvious things like, hey, don't like tire fires here at Yellowstone and things like that.
Yeah. Laura says, try living in Canada. Ooh, I can imagine. Canada. Oh, BC. You're on my bucket list, BC. The Yukon. I just have to go there before I die. I got to go.
Bend of BC. Didn't get very far. We got to Burnaby, and that was about it. And it was beautiful, but it reminded me of like the Pacific Northwest in Oregon, but friendlier, basically.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. The Canadian Rockies are amazing. Now, I've been to Quebec. Been to Montreal. I've been up there not several times, but a few times, of course. I've never been to Nova Scotia. I definitely want to go to Nova Scotia when the Scots were used to kick out the French. Good times, right? Thank you, English, for your world domination. Because of you, we are here today. But Canada seems really bizarre as well, politically speaking. Of course, we've seen the insanity that has pursued the faithful there, as well as the average citizen, of course, taking their money, putting them in jail, and all the rest. It seems to be the order of the day up there. Yeah, it's bizarre when you read the headlines and you deal with these issues, especially in places that you think ought to be sort of the opposite. Like I'll give you another example. So when I went to Alaska for the first time, and you just behold Alaska, and you're like, there is a God, and He is great. Just look at this. This is amazing. And yet Alaska statistically is one of the most secular states in America. It's full of people who think they can pull themselves up by the boots of their own the straps of their own boots. They don't need God. They don't need the spaghetti monster and the pie in the sky thing. They can do anything they need by themselves. They don't need anybody else to do it. So they tend to be secular atheists. They tend to also have higher suicide rates. They also have alcoholism rates and all of those things that are higher than normal than the lower 48. And I just don't understand, because when you go there, it is so amazing. It is so beautiful. It's so epic. It's so grand that how do you not give God praise in a place like that? And yet they're a weird purple state. Laura says, Scottish proud too. Yay and amen. Praise be to God. Juan Guanzon. I hope I said that right. Good morning to you. Alaska mambling? I don't even know what that is. Time to move to, did you say Uruguay, Colin? Are we moving to Uruguay? Anthony, do you think that what is like the most Catholic, solidly Catholic? Is there a country that is the most solidly Catholic country in the world? We think of Catholic countries. We're going to think of Ireland. We're going to think of Poland, neither of which are solidly Catholic. Brazil, I'm not sure. Brazil, Portugal's not.
Portugal's not.
Malta isn't really.
Portugal's not, by the way? You know why Portugal's not solidly Catholic? Even though Our Lady of Fatima said that. No, because Our Lady of Fatima said, this came out through people investigating what things Sister Lucia said, that, the dogma of the faith will always be preserved in Portugal. And then she said, etc. And people always wonder, well, what was that, etc.? And some people did some digging. And you know what they found out the etc. was?
What?
As long as Portugal does not legalize abortion. Guess what they did like 20 years ago or something?
Yeah. We get what we get. The kingdom of Joe's house. Yay and amen, Yvonne.
I will risk tornadoes and things to live in a state that doesn't have legal abortion and has a state government that is openly hostile to destroying the innocence of children.
Yeah.
Colleen says America.
America. It's America with an M.
The most solidly Catholic country.
It's America. Okay.
Hey, we have a very Catholic president, and if you disagree with it, you obviously are an insurrectionist or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Or something. or something.
Or deplorable.
Yeah. Clinton, BC is a beautiful high desert, says James. I could imagine. I would just love to spend about a month or so up in BC. That'd be so amazing to see it. Praise be to Jesus. Do they have a TLM in BC? Probably not, right? I don't even know if the SSPX are there. They might be. Not sure. Calgary? I don't even know.
I can check.
Blaine.
I can let you know if there's.
Good morning to you. Now, I don't go to the SSPX chapel, but I would if I was going to BC, and that was my only option. I would do it. Laura says God is most angry about abortion. Oh man. I think the cup is overflowing when it comes to God's anger. I think what's coming is going to be not good. And I think people are underestimating all of that. Chesty, good morning again. Juan, good morning. Philippines. Is the Philippines? They got Cardinal Tagle. I know they're Catholic, and there's a lot of piety there. They're probably one of the most pious countries on the planet. I'll give the Philippines that. Definitely one of the most pious countries on planet Earth. But does solidly Catholic? Maybe.
The Philippines are also one of the most Islamic countries. Yeah,
right.
Outside the Middle East. So,
yeah.
I mean, although with those two, somehow those two religions living in relative peace means you're probably not going to get too much of the rainbow flag waving stuff going on there. So there is that.
There is. Okay. All right. So points for Philippines. All right. We'll put that on the board.
Did you get as much of a chuckle out of seeing the Pride Parade people having a confrontation with the pro-Palestinian protesters and how that turned into a riot? I shouldn't smile at the violence, but at the same time, it's like that "let them fight" meme. It's just like,
Yeah. I mean, I'm not supposed to like the pro-Palestinian protesters, but I kind of, if I'm being honest, it was definitely a Donald Trump moment inside of me at that when I was watching that, for sure. Oh man, it kind of reminded me. Do you remember like, so the whole Black Lives Matter protests that were happening in all these cities, and then all of a sudden they were coming around this corner, and then the Proud Boys are coming around this corner, and then there was like this big bash and brawl that happened. Remember that from like back in 2021 or 20? I can't remember. It would have been 2020
probably.
Yeah, I don't remember what year it was, but it was just back during the pandemic and all of that Black Lives Matter stuff. I was like, watching that going, look at these two groups. Look at these two groups go at it. It was
my favorite part of that time was when they told us that the Black Lives Matter protests did not help spread COVID. That was my favorite part. That you going to the grocery store and standing 3 feet behind the person would, but
what? I mean, how dumb do we have to be?
I get the feeling if they try to like kick off a bird flu thing this year, that no one's going to buy it, except for the people who still wear masks. They'll be the ones who buy it, and nobody else will.
I think they overplayed their hand in 2020, and now they're like, oh man, we that was one of our best strategies. What do we do now? Because even the modernist, they don't want this. Even there's liberals who don't want this anymore. They were pushing liberals to support Donald Trump, for crying out loud, over all of this. Although Donald Trump was terrible during the pandemic. One of my biggest criticisms of him was giving $1 billion to Big Pharma, and then setting the ball up for Joe Biden and team to cram it down our throats. So thank you, Art of the Deal guy.
We had 3 pretty good years, and then someone took advantage of his deal making.
Big time, huge. Right? That was and that was the problem. I think as one of the other bigger criticisms I have for Donald Trump. Which, by the way, my comments on the Donald Trump conviction have been included in a Crisis Magazine article published today. You can go over there. The headline says, "Growing Anger at the Trump Convictions." There's several people who were asked to submit comments. I was among them. And you can find my comments there. But I think he naively walked into the deep state. I think he thought,
without question.
He thought, I'm Donald Trump. I have all I need already. But he walks into a very sophisticated, well-connected, organization who just weren't going to put up with it. And then he appointed all the wrong people.
The governments for 60 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
I find it funny that he's kind of making that same mistake, because when asked if he's going to declassify some really hot button documents, he says, "Oh yeah, we're going to declassify JFK, 9/11, and whatever the other one."
He said that the first time.
I'm like, bro, you're willing. He seems a little more hot about it now, and I'm just like, you want to follow in JFK's footsteps? This is how you do that, is by promising this stuff, because they have had. Nobody thought that they would actually convict him. that they just do this so they can bring down his approval rating. But they did. Nobody thought that they would impeach him twice. Nobody thought they would do all these extreme things. They have done every single extreme step. So what's the next extreme step? Send him to jail and take his Secret Service protection away.
Well, that's the interesting thing. If he goes to jail, I don't personally believe he'll go to jail. I think they want the optics. Be catastrophic. But if they make him a martyr even further, it's only going to backfire. Already, liberal billionaires are already announcing they're going to support Donald Trump. Like, that's not the outcome you want if you're on the liberal left and you're looking for an option in the next 4-year term. So I think it's backfired on them in that. But if he actually puts on an orange jumpsuit, it is over. At that point,
America. Some commentators have said America loves an outlaw.
Everybody who shops at a Family Dollar or a Walmart's going to vote for Donald Trump if he's in an orange jumpsuit. It's over. It'll be it.
Right. And remember, America loves an outlaw. And as one commentator said, they turned him into Tupac, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not wrong.
That's exactly right. Yeah, they did, didn't they? Oh man,
it's so ridiculous.
Interesting times. The times we live in.
If
By
they
the
had
way,
done none of this stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
If they had done none of this stuff, they'd be winning right now.
They would be.
Even though,
it's true.
Although, you know what's funny right now? No one's noticed this. OPEC hates Joe Biden. They hate him.
Yeah.
To the point where they have decided to curb oil production again by 3.9 million barrels until the beginning of next year. That is clearly, and that's their pushing on the election themselves.
Yeah, I reported on that the other day.
Your gas is going to go up.
Your gas
is going to go up.
Biden sends these guys over to the Saudi, crown prince to say, hey, can we get a little bit more oil? And he's like, no, no, you can't. In fact, you're going to get less this time. Hey, have a great day, though. Right. That's where we've been these last few years in this. I was going to say pontificate. That was just a Freudian slip of mine. Rather, the presidency. We live in interesting times. We do indeed live in interesting times. Hey, people in NYC wear masks. I wasn't a good mask wearer. I need to breathe, Evelyn said. I had to fly in 2020, and they required the mask. So I ended up buying one of those like pantyhose masks, so it was all open, so I could breathe on the plane. And as long as I wore it, I guess they were okay with it, but it didn't encumber my breathing at all whatsoever, which was hilarious.
My favorite was Mike from Restoring the Faith had posted pictures on social media of himself flying with a mask on. The mask had printed on it the words, "This mask is as useless as Joe Biden," or something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, he got a lot of dirty looks for that on the airplane, but they couldn't do it. He was following
You're the
rule.
one who wanted me to wear a mask. You want me to take it off? I'll take it off just for you. I'll be kind and take it off just for you. Oh man. By the way, Janice asked, what happened a year ago? Are you asking about the Gloria Purvis thing that I mentioned in passing a few minutes ago? That could be a whole separate show.
Yeah, I was curious about that too.
So I'll give you the highlights anyway, the highlight reel. So back in 2020, I worked for a different radio apostolate. I worked for the Guadalupe Radio Network, and I was in leadership role there. And Gloria Purvis was a co-host of a morning show along with Deacon Harold Burke Servers and Monsignor Charles Pope. And with the pandemic, things began to de-escalate or escalate the other way. They began to come unraveled, is what I wanted to say, amongst these three in their conversation. It was a daily morning show, and these three started to not get along all that well. And it was clear that one of them was opposed to the other two. The pandemic was really becoming a problem. And then you throw some extra logs on the fire. You've got the George Floyd thing. You've got the riots that take off, the Black Lives Matter riots that take off, and the unrest that is happening in our country at that time. Well, the conversation amongst these three begins to truly become not great. It was very uncomfortable to listen to, argumentative at best. They're supposed to be friends and co-hosts, and we are adults. We can talk about anything. That's my policy, is I should be able to talk about anything with anyone I want because we're adults, and we should be able to do that. So I don't have a problem with talking about difficult subjects or even having contrary opinions, but they shouldn't be. Co-hosts shouldn't be trying to kill each other along the way. Like, you know what I mean? I'm exaggerating to make my point. So bottom line was the network decided it was no longer comfortable to listen to this. We asked EWTN to kind of get involved and do something. They declined to do something. So the network I worked for decided we gotta do something. If EWTN won't do something, then we got to do something. So they took it off. They decided to stop carrying the show. Gloria Purvis, she was really, upset by the fact that the GRN took that show off the air. And so she basically made it a personal war with the GRN. She turned a lot of reporters on the story, and they all kind of came after us, which led the, literally thousands and thousands of people to come after the GRN, accusing the GRN of being racist.
I actually remember that now because I remember covering that sort of because they eventually got rid of her.
So the New York Times came after the GRN at the time, and we had staff on the inside who believed the lie and thought we were acting as racist. Now, here's the kicker. Gloria Purvis was arguing with her co-hosts about the Black Lives Matter movement and police. One of the trio was Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers, who is, last time I checked, black and a former police chief.
I'm guessing he was not fond of Black Lives Matter.
So I had Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers on my show at the time, and we talked about some of this, and he's like, and I've even talked to him several times since. He and I have been friends over the years. And he's also from Portland, Oregon. He said, Joe, you know what's interesting about that whole story? He said, not one reporter called me to ask me my opinion of all of that. Nobody wanted me to answer what I felt about Gloria Purvis, the fall and decline of the show, and about, who said what and did what. It's an inconvenient fact that I happen to be black and a former police chief, and also didn't agree with Gloria's opinion on the matter. And so they were, it was just like bizarre. The whole thing was bizarre. But here's the kicker, though. It was an ugly, ugly period for the Guadalupe Radio Network, who was trying to stay above board and do the right thing, and literally was not a comfortable show to listen to. We were accused of being racist. We were accused of being chauvinists because we took a woman off the air, a minority woman. So, oh my heavens, you really are Hitler incarnate. We were getting a lot of that treatment. And then, of course, we were being threatened by donors and people, bishops, were mad at us for taking it off the air. But all of that paled in comparison to the effect that the whole thing had on my wife. Because over the course of about a span of 3 days, she watched the vitriol of the mob uncover things about her husband and say just the most vile things about her husband, about her husband's job, about her husband's apostolate. And we were right. I'm still right. She was wrong. EWTN was wrong, in my opinion, my estimation of how they decided to handle that. They let GRN sort of take the brunt of the angry mob at the gates with their pitchforks and their torches. But I don't care about any of that because it was the look in my wife's eye that hurt me the most. So anyway, that's the story. It sucks when the mob comes after you. There's no question about that. Candace Owens talked about that yesterday, and hopefully she'll share more about that at our conference in August in Niagara Falls. It sucks when the mob comes after you. But if you're right, you got to stand your ground. So I have a policy. This kind of reminds me, and I'd love to hear your take on this, Dr. Stine. I have a policy on YouTube. We can all have an opinion. I have an opinion. I share my opinion all the time. I have guests on that share their opinions all the time. I let the audience have an opinion too. You don't always agree with me. There's lots of people who show up here and they have mean and ugly opinions. For the most part, I'm pretty tolerant when it comes to allowing you to express your opinion. As a result to that policy, like, I don't actually spend all that much time reading the comments on, say, my videos on YouTube. On occasion, I will go and read them. But I also don't regulate them all that much either.
I regulate, like, hate speech, basically, what YouTube would call that, because I know they sometimes hold you responsible for letting that kind of stuff fly in your comments. Beyond that, I have a hard and fast rule of banning people who try to lead people out of the church. And that means if it's a Protestant saying, like this morning while we were talking, I looked and saw that somebody was saying, why not a female pope? You guys worship the Queen of Heaven. And I was like, I gave her a snarky response. And she's like, I'm a former Catholic. I'm not a Protestant. I'm just a follower of the Bible and of Jesus. I'm like, banned. Like,
you don't even know what the terms mean, for crying out loud. You are protesting the church. You are a Protestant by definition. Oh, my heavens.
If you are not part of an apostolic tradition in Christianity, we can name all of them if we want to, but if you don't have valid orders that go back to the apostles, and you call yourself a Christian, you are by definition a Protestant. Mm-hmm. That's what you are. If you can trace yourself back to Luther, or Calvin, or Zwingli, or Henry VIII, or some other group that I'm not naming, you're a Protestant. So if you try to lead people out of the Catholic Church, I will ban you. If you try to, that includes also the Orthodox. I'm fine with Protestants and Orthodox in my comments, but if you're trying to lead people out of the church, that's kind of, I don't want to have to answer for that someday. But beyond that, I don't care that much. I mean, if you're trying to run a marketing scam in my comments, I'm sure, like, does your producer here make sure that no one is going, hey, WhatsApp, or hey, this one person fill in the blank name saved me thousands of dollars. My life changed. And then there are 47 comments from bots, right? Like, that stuff.
I'm on.
But otherwise, I read my comments. I hit like on some comments. I reply to a few, because it's good to keep that interaction going and have people actually feel like the person they're commenting with actually cares.
Yeah. Every once in a while, I will do that. I will read them and respond, but I tend not to, because there's a trade-off here. There's a trade-off, and I go back to what I said a minute ago about that look in my wife's eye. There's a price that is being paid by my wife and my children in the work that I do every day. That's a heavy price. There's not enough compensation to make up for some of those consequences that come with the job. I'm just here to tell you, not enough. So I balance things. But I balance that load by saying, hey, listen, I can have an opinion. You can have an opinion. We should be able to be in the same room and at least have a conversation without killing ourselves. I've been told I shouldn't be talking to so-and-so because they're a canceled somebody or other. Listen, I should be able to talk to anybody about anything at any time because we're adults. We should be able to do that, right? And I think that's part of the issue, that we live in this sort of cancel culture thing. So going back to Gloria for a second, God loved Gloria. I want only the best for Gloria. I want only the best for her family, and I hope and pray that God uses her in a powerful way to do amazing stuff. But she caused a lot of trouble. She took, at the time anyway, maybe since she has changed, she took no responsibility for it and was happy to fan the flame of the hate mob that came after us. So I, as sort of like a balancing mechanism in my own life, I have to be knee deep in this difficulty, dark stuff all the time. I cannot be consumed by the comm box. I give that effort right here, right now, when we're doing live shows. This crew is an eclectic group of amazing people. You have various opinions. Some of it I agree with, some I don't, but we tend to be good citizens in our comm box during the live show. So I spend the time reading your comments during the live program. I actually don't read the comments all that often. I do sometimes, but not all that often on the uploaded videos. But the live stuff I do because I enjoy the community. I like the crew that's here every day. And I like the conversations that we have. So it's for my own soul. I just don't think I can spend, because I think I would be consumed by it all. And I think there's a balance to be had there. You were going to say, Dr. Stine?
Oh, I can't even remember now. It doesn't matter. But a lot of times, the one thing that does bother me when you see comment sections is that Catholics will forget that they're Catholic sometimes in the way they respond in comment sections to people, saying some really heinous stuff. It's like, we all stand in judgment for things we say, right? I'm pretty sure that includes the what we say in the comment section. Although I do defend and will defend to the death the right of people to be anonymous online. There's good reason to be anonymous online. Mm-hmm. And I find it very odd that some high-profile Catholic figures, will make fun of people for having an anonymous account or anonymous handle on Twitter or Facebook or wherever. There's good reason to be anonymous on social media, especially when you are in a position where you have to stand against the encroaching degeneracy of the modern world, the encroaching godlessness. And when you have people praying to end abortion outside of abortion clinics, going to prison like that. You hear about that woman who just got sentenced to like 2 years in prison, and she's in her 70s and in poor health.
Yep.
You heard about that case? Came down just a couple days ago. Yeah.
The pro-life lady.
And the judge mocked her.
Right.
When her husband begged for mercy. Yeah.
Isn't that something?
This is what we're dealing with.
Yes. There's an injustice.
Just remember when you're in the
world.
comment section that you're Catholic.
That is true. That's another reason why my email signature, I always sign off with "God bless you," "God love you." Usually, "God love you" is sort of my thing. And when I have staff that work for me, I kind of require them. I asked them when I was at GRN. I asked all the staff that worked underneath me to include that, because it's a check and balance. Like, why do I wear this crucifix and this miraculous medal around my neck? Is it because I'm trying to virtue signal? No, it's because this sometimes regulates me. It sometimes has to catch me, remind me that, hey, you can't just lose your cool. You can't just go off. You can't go off the cuff, go crazy mad and say things like too much faggotry, for instance. You can't just say these terms and act like it's okay to act like a commoner of the world, a secularist, a humanist. You are somebody who claims to be a follower of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and these things can help remind us of that. So the habit we wear, the crosses we bear, what we claim to be has to come to bear in everything we do. So that's why my email signature is that way, because if I'm disagreeing with somebody, I have to regulate that. I have to have some charity in that conversation as best I can. And I think these things are helpful tools along that line. And you're right. Anonymous accounts tend, I again, because I'm so tolerant of other people's opinions on social media, I don't bite on every hook I see. But there are some times where people, I'll post a video, for instance, this has happened to me on several occasions. I'll post a video of an interview or something I said or did or whatever on the show. I'll post it to the social media, and then someone will want me to explain the video to them. And I'm like, press play. Well, I'm not going to watch your video. I just expect you to tell me. I made the video to explain my side. Watch the video for my side. It's like, but then I'll get into this argument. I'll get into this tit for tat where they want to have this big debate. And I'm just like, you're wasting my time, for number one. Number two, because of your internet anonymousness, you act as though the world owes you something. And we are just privileged to live in your world. And there's just an arrogance and an attitude.
I see lots of people do that without being anonymous too. I don't think that's the
I was about to say
that's the common factor.
People, it's the disconnect, right? It's the keyboard disconnect from reality that they think gives them permission to act like that. Mm-hmm. And it's really weird too that people will come to your comment section and say, "Oh, I'm not going to watch your video. Please just explain it to me." I'm like, "No, I'm not going to do that."
That's why I made the video. Yeah.
The reason I spent 2 hours making this video is so that people will watch it. I'm not going to waste my time.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Hey, Karen, you are amazing, Karen. You are very generous. I'm so grateful to you. God bless you and God love you. Thank you for that gift. Praise be to God.
I do got to step out. I've got another thing in about 2 minutes. So I do got to step out of here. So.
We need to sign off too. By the way, but real quick before you go, so I've got a fun conversation coming up tomorrow. One of the YouTube channels that I watch is I Miss Christendom. I've watched their content probably over the better part of the last year. Well, they just released a video that piqued my curiosity, and it was about the revelations of Bruno Cornicchiola and Our Lady of Revelation. And as you all know, I went there and I interviewed Dr. Sergio Gaeta at the grotto in Rome at Tre Fontane. I had a very interesting conversation with him on that. And we talked about how after Bruno died, there was a real effort within the very community he founded. Half went one way, half they went the other way. And one of the half is trying to sanitize all of those messages because they wanted a better relationship with Rome.
They didn't try. They were successful. The book that's out there is that way. I have the same document that they have. I do want to do something with it, but I'm trying to verify that it's actually real. And I sent a copy to Marianne Barthold also, so for her to look at. So I'm going to do something on it, but maybe I'll do something on that this coming week. Actually,
you should.
Because there was one section in it that was time. Anyway, I got to run. So thanks very much for having me.
Dr. Stine, God bless you. God love you. Thanks for being on the team. We're going to have that conversation tomorrow with I Miss Christendom. It's going to be great. I'm excited to talk about that and talk about the differences between the documents and some of the deeper points that have been sort of covered over and hidden because they are telling indeed. Hey, God bless you. Thank you all for your generous support. Share us with a friend. We would be incredibly grateful to you. God bless you. God love you. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning.